Hey everyone. All right. Welcome
How's it
back.
going?
Me and Asif ready to blow your mind
To
a
rock it
hundred
up,
times over.
baby.
Asif, you might want to turn your mic up a little bit, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
I like when Asif is on full volume in my ears. It
Yeah.
gets me. That's really the secret to success is listen to Asif at
De-
full volume.
Destroying your eardrums. Yeah. How's this sound?
Then you can't hear the outside world. Then you can't hear all the problems that exist.
Then you can focus.
Focus creates
how,
success.
how does this sound?
Oh, it's good. It's good, man.
Cool.
And we'll get an equalizer later on. But for now, we got just way too much wisdom to share with everyone. So take some notes. This is about to be heavy, in the best way, though. Heavy and uplifting. It's like going to the gym. You're gonna get a six pack at some point.
Exactly.
Yeah, today Asif and I want to talk about having a billionaire level of effectiveness. Asif and I both know by which date we will be billionaires already. Yes, it will take time, and that is part of the process, but that's what we're here documenting our journey and our thought process with doing that because one day when you see us extremely successful, people are going to say, oh, it seems like you just did it overnight. No, this is why we're documenting the journey because we're not special. We just apply ourselves and we use a few tools that make us do this. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. What do you want to say about this asset before we dive in the deep end?
And I remember when I couldn't even say the word billionaire. Like when the word billionaire would be mentioned, I would just react and be like, why are we even talking about billions? Like I can't even make like, you know, 15K in a month. Like I'm hurting, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been really cool integrating that point because it's not really about whether or not we hit that specific date of being a billionaire. Is like, who do you know in your life who even have a date of being a billionaire, let alone have the goal of being a billionaire, let alone have a reason to be a billionaire?
That's a huge one. The reason, right? Because it's not to be a billionaire just because status or whatever. That is stupid. It's we want that because of who do you have to become to do that, and what type of impact would you have to have in the world to be compensated that much money?
Yeah, because I think what a lot of people don't realize is that money is a how. And this is something that we talk a lot about in the YBC when we have our weekly calls and things like that, where it's like everybody repeats that line, start with why. Yeah. Simon Sinek. Yeah. Like KT, like, the why versus the how and all that stuff. And it's like the best thing that they could come up with is something that only depends on them. And this is the first point that like to really look at is responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
A billionaire level of responsibility is what equals a billionaire's level of income or assets.
Yeah, let me look up how many employees does Amazon have right now. This is
Yeah,
like
and what
everyone just guess before you can think of it. All right, how many employees do you think Amazon had in, let's see, in 2021? Just guess, okay? How many employees does Amazon have in 2021? Okay, time's up. In 2021, they had 1,608,000 employees. Okay, 1 million.
1.6 million employees.
Okay, everyone, if you think you could handle that level of responsibility right now, if you got to put in Jeff Bezos' shoes today, you would melt. You would freak out. You'd probably have a heart attack and the business would go down. Thankfully, there's a system built around it that keeps the thing going. I say thankfully because, I mean, I mean it, but I don't mean it because Amazon is not best, right? Right? Like having people running from warehouse to warehouse, doing all the stuff to work for Amazon, being paid basically minimum wage for that is horrible. We don't want that, right? But guess what? Am I going to be here and complain and say, "Oh, Jeff Bezos, that damn Jeff Bezos"? No, I'm not here to blame. It's us collectively. We are doing this. So that's why Asif and I are making this as a reminder to you. And we're going to share some insight with you over this discussion on how you can have that level of thinking and the level of activity. So you're going to be able to change that. Like if so, like how about you create a business that allows people to work with you instead of them having to go to a warehouse, and then we can just automate what's going on in the warehouse like they're going to do anyway. There's going to be a drone and a robotics system that's going to automate those people out of a job anyway. So what are they going to do? Just get on universal basic income? Or how about have them come work with you on creating real change in the world? That sounds better to me. What do you think, Asa?
It's like if you really look at the context of that, are you even thinking on that step yet?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because one is like you have to have a business that you can bring people into. But for a lot of you, I'm sure like the number one thing that you're focused on is I need to get me right first before I can provide for other people. Here's the reality. Your ability to provide for yourself and get benefit out of your life will be equal to the responsibility that you take on in this world.
Say that again.
Your responsibility, or sorry, your ability to provide the life you want for yourself is going to be equal to the level of responsibility that you take on in this world. Everybody knows, Mitch, when somebody says, let me get what you hear from other people. When you say, what's the point of an entrepreneur?
Yeah, a lot of people say, oh, to make money, oh, to provide value,
To provide value,
take on a risk,
to solve problems, take on, right?
Yeah.
It's like providing value. And then they go trade Forex. Provide value, and then they're like, let me go into like the derivative of digital la la land, and that's how I'm going to become a billionaire.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not saying to just not do it ever, but if you think that's going to be your vehicle of becoming the person that you want to be, that will be reflected as having $1 billion in net assets. I mean, jeez.
Well, think about it. How good do you have to become at dealing with people and influencing people and getting a group to work together in harmony? How good do you have to be at that if you're just sitting at your computer, watching for trades? Like it's just delusion.
Here's the thing to consider. Here's the thing to consider. Trading is a skill.
Yeah.
You don't become a billionaire by being good at a skill. Okay. An example would be Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. Steve Jobs, he was more quote unquote skilled, but his net worth only got to like $250 million. Okay. Even Steve Jobs, though, he wasn't the programmer. He had a good understanding of things, but he got other people to do it. He was a businessman, a visionary, and that's why he was able to execute on the scale that he did. But even greater than that was Bill Gates. He just stole everything from Apple every step of the way. Even though Bill could program, that's not what made him valuable. There's a lot of programmers around the world. Why don't they have the same success as Bill Gates, for example, or Steve Jobs? Because the skill is not the value. You can be a great artist. You can be look at DJ Khaled. Is it because he's a sick music producer? Like he's the best music producer? Is that why he's successful? Or is it because he has a business mindset? He has the programming for business. It's not about the skill set. Exactly, right? So it's not about can you trade? That's actually a form of enslavement if it requires you to be doing the thing. Bill Gates doesn't work on Microsoft. I mean, not now, but I mean, even on his come up, when he was killing it, he wasn't the one developing Microsoft. And even in the beginning, he was stealing everything and then just selling way harder. That's why Steve Jobs only got to like $250 million or so. And Bill Gates, I mean, frick, man. Yeah. Hundreds of billions.
Right. Right. And it's like, within yourself, are you looking at yourself as inferior to those people or even superior, right? For some of you are like, oh, well, Bill Gates is evil now because he's trying to do all this stuff, right? It's like, no, like stop doing that. That's not what someone who's extremely successful would do. Rather, we need to look at it instead of oh, that's them. They are the ones out there doing their thing. No, it's us collectively. And now us collectively, knock, knock, for you listening, time to step up big time. Because last I checked, the world's pretty screwed. Like we need innovation big time.
This is such a massive point of always saying they. I know one of somebody in one of our circles pointed out to me and Mitch, he's like, hey guys, don't say they anymore. Say we.
Yeah. And for those of you who have Technotutor, put in the phrase change they to we. That was like once I did that, so then I had it on an automatic level, I started to actually see it for myself. It was less of like, oh, I got to remember to say that. I got to remember that. It's like, no, like I actually see that now. I don't see the separation per se. I see the collectiveness.
Yeah. without going too much into it, just, you've heard the phrase that the internal is a reflection of the external, or sorry, the external is a reflection of the internal. Internal equals external, as above, so below, as within, so without. It's like everywhere where you judge somebody else. And we're talking about it in the context of those who control the world. Oh my God, they're so evil, the elite and the government and blah, blah. That's because within yourself, you have accepted them as the authority. There are things that you don't want to take responsibility for. And in that is your acceptance of the quote unquote parasitical elite class. That is your acceptance of a corrupt government, because you don't want to get into politics. You don't want to take on the responsibility of having 1.6 million employees, for example. We're talking to the people who are seeing the value of wanting to make a difference in this world, and the people who are ready to walk that journey.
Yeah. And so for this discussion here today, we've designed this in a way as something that you can keep coming back to, because we're about to drop so much insight from everything that we've learned so far, that it's a lot. Like it's going to be maybe too much to handle all at once, but I mean, listen through and then come back to this later on, right? Save this and take notes on it, because what we're going to be explaining is how you can look at taking that responsibility one step at a time to then amass a lot of wealth and influence in your life. And then also some different ways of thinking that are going to help you break out of your current state of feeling maybe stagnant, or like you're in a plateau, or even if right now, if you're crushing it, like, good, let's use that momentum now to really go above and beyond. And so, I would definitely suggest, like, I mean, like, this is how I like to listen to things is I will get some good audios that I want to hear, and I'll put them in my headphones and I'll go on a walk. Because for me, that just helps me to like really look and process it. And sometimes, as if I know we were joking about this the other week when we were hanging out, of like, is it one of those audios you can listen to at a 2x, or is it one you got to listen to at 1.5, or is this like a 1x? You know what I'm saying, right? Because you can change the playback speed. Do what makes sense, but like really give yourself space and time to reflect on this, because this stuff alone and some of the questions that we'll ask you will be enough to really help catalyze you. And again, with Aspen and I, our goal is to give you so much freaking value that you see what we're saying, and then you actually do something with it. And then come into our groups, right? YBC, the Young Billionaires Club, our Discord chat, come into Self-Perfected, like come into these communities, because we're not the only people doing this. We have a whole group of people around the world that have been at this for a while now. And, it's just growing. And this is the next phase.
Young and old, new and been around. At the end of the day, for a lot of people, a lot of people have been jaded. They've been jaded from hearing all this information from other people and then trying to apply it in their lives and flopping. Right? We're here because look, me and Mitch have both been there. We both invested copious amounts of money into personal development and the books and the audios and the events and the seminars and walking on the coals and all that stuff. Like, and a lot of the things brought no results, and some things brought all of the results. So we're here to distill that down for you, so that you get the points, those pure bars of gold that you can take with you, and you'll feel that shit in your pocket. And you'll be like, oh yeah, like I feel the difference of having this bar of gold with me. Yeah. So that's why Mitch is suggesting taking the time to take this seriously. And what do I mean by seriously? You don't have to have furrowed eyebrows when you're listening. I mean, consider the things that, if, for example, when a question is posed, consider for yourself, what is the answer? When we're sharing about a discrepancy between how a billionaire thinks and how the average person thinks, consider where you're the average person. Don't just do that thing that we all do of like, oh yeah, dude, other people totally think like that, man. 100% other people are so screwed. Look at it for yourself. Yeah, that would be my suggestion.
The only person you're fooling is yourself. So, all right. So there's like three main pillars that we want to all look at, because these three are ways in which you can view the world in a way that not many other people are. And it's these different, you could say, well, before we even get into that, right? Because I want to talk about some dualities that you can look at and you can apply the best of both and really go forward. So we'll get into that in a minute. But first, there's just a basic concept. We might make a whole like a whole episode
Series.
on this,
or an
but
episode.
was it?
I said a whole series, but or we could just do an episode.
Yeah, like, okay, seriously, this is so freaking important. Like, this is the stuff that needs to be taught to children at a young age so they can not fall into the same trap. And that's what we're doing, right? Asif and I, we got kids on the way. We have kids in our network that are learning this kind of stuff, which is great. But here's what it is, right? It's this concept of, where do good ideas come from? And by good ideas, I mean innovation. I mean new insights, production, creativity. Where does that actually come from? Is it from the ether and you're downloading it from source? No. And if you're thinking like that, you're probably broke. Is it from just getting lucky? No. You can actually engineer it. So how do you engineer good ideas to happen? Would you want that? Would you want to engineer your life so that every day you're getting new, really valuable ideas? Yes, I'm sure you would. Okay, so here's, in simplest terms, how you do that is innovation happens from when you're putting a bunch of different other ideas together. Your brain will automatically, your mind, it will allow for the emergence of something greater to happen. For example, right? They've done studies on looking at how innovation works in cities. And the more people that you can stuff together, it increases innovation by exponential amount. That's why in a city, specifically in the central business district of a city, so like the main spot where money flows and all that, is it's exponentially, there's more innovation that happens because more people, more ideas, more backgrounds, all of this stuff is coming together and cross-pollinating, and then new things emerge. And in these studies, they measure innovation based on, I know one of the factors is on how many new patents are filed for in that area per year. Right. So it's one metric, but really think about it. Like when they look at the time of the Enlightenment, right? Like throughout Europe, it was synonymous with when city centers, they started to have places such as like coffee shops, places where people could come together and exchange ideas, exchange books. They could share the news. People would come together and mastermind in a sense. And that was then the birth of all these new levels of thinking that we had. Now, people can argue back and forth of, was that really the best times in history, blah, 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 all that. Let's just look at where we're at right now. So, for example, picture this, right? I don't know where y'all work, like in your typical day, if you have a home office or you go to an office or whatever, but there's this interesting phenomena that happened a few years ago, which was called a co-working space. And this is where you could have different businesses come together. And you would have different types of entrepreneurs, small teams, big teams, but they would all work in a co-working space. So there was both individual offices and then places where people could come together, and it would foster innovation, collaboration, connectivity, all that stuff. And so in much the same way, like as within, so without. So without, as in the world outside of ourselves, there are these situations where you can bring people and things and ideas together in an environment. But now, how do you do that inside yourself? All right, this is the important question, is what are you doing to now jam together different ideas from different walks of life? And here's why. If you study Elon Musk and Bill Gates specifically, both of them from a very young age, when their natural learning ability was still open, they read books voraciously. Hardcore books on everything, science fiction, biology, encyclopedias. Did you know this? That the founders of the internet, the original project, these were people where when they were kids, it was like Tim Berners-Lee was one of them. You can look him up. And when he was a child, he would read encyclopedias for fun. So think of all the different ideas you're getting. You're learning about animals, you're learning about cities, you're learning about biology, chemistry, the universe, all that stuff. You're taking all those ideas and you're bringing them together. Then you're integrating them. And then guess what? New innovation is going to emerge. For example, I'll just share this and then ask if I want to hear Jake on this. It was the person who was looking for, it was in organic chemistry. They were trying to comprehend like the shape of, like the like the hexagonal shape that's in like, I think it's like carbon chains or whatever, but it's like one of the base forms of life and how these molecular structures fit together. You can look at it like a hexagon. There's like 6 parts to it. And the way that they actually had that innovation was when they were studying Greek mythology. There's this concept of, they call it the Oroboros, which is a snake that's eating its own tail. And that shape, when the person was looking at that, they had the insight from something totally different, which was organic chemistry. And then they conceived of that idea and then they tested it and figured that out. So my point is, when you have the level of thinking and understanding where you can look at something like a garden, and you look at it when you're driving past, or you look outside your window and you look at a garden, and you can make the connection of a garden is just like a business. And then you have to have fertile soil, you have to plant seeds, you have to nurture it, and over time it will bear fruit for you. When you can see connections like that in your reality, you now have an extreme advantage over the other person who sees a garden and thinks, oh, garden, food, maybe. It's like, when they see business, money. No, there's way more interconnectedness to this. So that's a basic framework that I know people need to understand.
There's a term for this, and it's called divergent thinking. Okay, it's called divergent thinking. It's your ability to connect a formula across different examples. If you can draw the correlation between a garden and a business, these are 2 very different expressions, different ideas, different examples of something. But if you can find out that something that it is an example of, you now have a formula. You now have a formula that you can apply to different things, right? Where maybe you've been good at gardening and you're just getting into business for the first time. But if you, eventually it'll click for you, oh, having a business is just like having a garden. So if I just apply the same things that I did to that garden, I'll be able, in my business, I'll be able to be effective. That's an example, okay? I want you guys to understand this, okay? Everybody knows, might have an idea of what a neural network looks like, right? You have a node, and a node is just a point, okay? And then there's another point somewhere, and that's connected, right? And then there's another point, and the second and third point are connected. And there's another point, and the third and fourth point are connected. And there's another point, and the fourth and fifth point is connected, right? But that's a linear form of connection. 1 is connected to 2, is connected to 3, is connected to 4, is connected to 5, is connected to 1, okay? But how you actually function is as a neural network. It's not linear. It depends on like the use case would be, that's what is used in quantum processing, which is how your mind works. And so what I mean by that is 1 isn't just connected to 2 and 5. It's connected to 2, 5, 3, and 4. And 2 is connected to 3, 4, 5, and 1. And 3 is connected to 2, 4, 1, and 5. And my point is, at the end of that, you have that web, okay? And when you add 1 point to that web, 1 new idea, it's not making 1 new connection. It's not making 2 new connections. It's connecting to all the other information that is stored in that network. Okay, now this is what's going on inside of your body. And this is why, for those of you who have Technotutor and who use it on a consistent basis, this is why, the first day, it's kind of like going to the gym. First day, you're like, okay, cool, this is interesting. I felt some stuff. But after a month, after 3 months, you're like, holy crap. Here's why. Is because you're purifying a point inside of you. You're purifying another point inside of you. You're purifying another point inside of you. And eventually, once you add a new point, you're not just making 5 new connections. Why? Because if you do something on a daily basis, it accumulates, it accumulates, it accumulates, it accumulates. And eventually you have 1,000 of those nodes. It's not just 5, it's 1,000. And then you add 1 more node. and it connects to everything else and gives you that new idea about how to look at your business, how to look at your relationship that makes it all work. This is divergent thinking, okay? This is equal to externally what Mitchell was describing of when you get enough people together in a room, in a city, in an area, a lot more new ideas are produced because you have a lot of different nodes that get connected to one another. So a billionaire level of thinking is one, being able to always be gathering data from a bunch of different sources, reading different things, learning different things. But two, you have to have the prerequisite processing ability to even do that, right?
Well, and that, yeah, that's another new important node to look at. So with this, right, I'm so glad you brought that up, the piece about Technotutor, because if you don't have Technotutor specifically, you're not going to be able to go back through and purify the nodes, because they're hardwired into your brain, and it comes mainly from your childhood. And so Technotutor gives you the ability to access that physical level. And yeah, that's why it's so important to use it every single day, and then it will grow, but even if you don't have Technotutor yet, well, I would look into, like, reach out to me or Asif, and we can explain that to you. And also then you're able to now take this new node of information, which is, hey, this is where good ideas come from. You got to innovate, right? You got to have divergent thinking. Now you can take that in and you can start to factor that into your life, and you can start to build your environment in a way where you're able to now have new streams of information coming in. And here's something that's really cool is I was chatting the other week with one of my friends and mentors, Avery Williams, and he is brilliant businessman, made millions and millions and millions of dollars, truly one of the people with the highest level of integrity I've ever met, just supports me a lot. And he's great. And he was explaining this to me because, a month or two ago, I was going through a bit of a plateau in my business. Like, I had grown a ton and then I had plateaued. And I had asked him, I was like, what do you do in this situation? He said, oh, it's pretty simple. When you hit a plateau, more education is required. It means you need to add more nodes to the network. And so utilize this right here and the other videos Asif and I have made, and the other videos in the podcasts and the different content that we put out, as ways to consistently pour in new information into your mind, so then you can use that and you can start to see how we see the world, and you can then add your own understanding to it. And again, as long as it's based in principle, because principle is the most important core nodes you can have, as long as you have that, you're going to be able to start seeing reality in a new way. And that's going to really drastically serve you for the better. So, Asif, there's the three main dualities that I want to bring up here. I mean,
and let me preface them.
Yeah.
This is something that we want everyone to note, because at the end of the day, being a billionaire is about becoming your own authority. Okay. And what I mean by that is, I want to preface, because we're about to hit this home with this kind of dichotomy that it won't seem to make sense. What Mitch is about to share, these three points, it seems like, whoa, these are kind of like contrasting each other, aren't they? Like, how do you do that? Here's the point to consider. Every piece of advice that you get, every sexy one-liner that you hear is context sensitive. This is where people go wrong, because everything has some kind of, okay, I'll give you an example and then I'll explain. The early bird gets the worm, right? The early bird gets the worm. So pounce on things right away. Like, don't wait, go for it, right? But what about patience is a virtue?
Or good things come to those who wait.
Good things come to those who wait. So here's the thing. If you never clarify these things inside of yourself, you keep accumulating more and more nodes, but you never connect them harmoniously. You end up accumulating all these beliefs, all these ideas, all these concepts, all these thoughts, all these pieces of advice, and it actually bogs you down. it actually slows you down because you're not processing them, right? This is why we talk about the different tools that we use. Because could you see how having the belief that good things come to those who wait, and patience is a virtue, and the early bird gets the worm, and taking massive and immediate action now, how those are in opposing one another, how that would create conflict inside of you? So the point to consider is what Mitch is about to break down is a billionaire level of thinking, right? So just something to consider is every piece of advice is good in some contexts and not good in other contexts, okay? So it's really about your ability to process when to use what. So Mitch is going to break down a couple of different examples of where things might seem kind of opposing, but they actually can be very harmonious. And your ability to harmonize the information inside of you, that will be what determines your status as a billionaire. Go ahead, Mitch.
Yeah. So these are worthy of reflection. I remember the first time I heard these, I did not comprehend it at all. And then a year later, I re-looked at it and I still did not comprehend it at all. Now, finally, again, after using Technotutor, after now hanging out with the right people, being able to chat with people who are extremely effective in business and their understanding of the world, now I'm seeing it. So the first one is what I would call patient urgency. So it'd be a duality, right? It's like a polarity. It's like, wait, I thought you're patient or urgent. It's like, no, to have a billionaire level of effectiveness, you have to have patient urgency. You have to be patient and realize that things in physical reality take freaking time. Like, I don't think you realize how slow physical reality moves. Like, have you ever planted a seed in the ground and built a garden? Maybe if you had kids, like it takes time to have them grow. So physical reality is quite slow. That's why we've been so programmed with instant gratification, because that way you'll never actually rise up and be real competition to the people who run the world. So you have to be patient, but at the same time, you have to be urgent. So you have to have this mentality of like, okay, I'm patient in my goal and I can see it over the long run, but in the moment when I need to, I will be urgent and I will strike. And I'll make the decision. I will do the thing that I know I need to do, and I can move in an instant. That's one example, patient urgency. Another one is empathetic imagination. So empathetic meaning you have empathy for other people, as in you can relate and comprehend. You can relate to them, and you can comprehend what they're going through. So you can be empathetic towards them, and you can really stand in their shoes and do your best to see the world through their eyes. Such as if you have a business and you're trying to relate to your market and your clients, you got to have empathy. So you can understand, what are they going through? What are their pains? What are their issues? What keeps them up at night? And then how can you support? How can you deliver to them what they need based on their understanding? So that's empathetic, but then imagination, right? Which is within yourself. And now your imagination, your definition of imagination is probably messed up. I don't mean imagination like, ooh, if I can just visualize my success, I'll be successful. That's like Disney stuff. Like, don't do that. Rather, by imagination, look at the word image. It's creating an image within your mind, within your environment, that can now calibrate with the empathy of, okay, I'm looking at what does that person want? And then I'm going to use my imagination to then craft something that's going to actually serve the situation. So you might do this automatically, but what we're looking at is, how do you now have empathy in the best way so you can support another person, understand where they're at, look at life through their perspective, and then use your imagination, which is best done as you're calibrating your mind to what would be best for everyone. So you can use that imaginative power within your own mind, and then you can combine those. So now you can start to create real solutions for people and think through solutions. So that's important, right? Because then you have a clear strategy, you have a clear game plan. And then, is it enough to just keep it in your mind? No, you need this third part. And this third part is what we would call inventive execution. So inventive execution, this is combining being an inventor, coming up with ideas, right? Thinking through the problems and then what it would take to solve them. But then you can execute and you can actually get it done in the real world. So it's one thing to have a great idea. I bet you've had 10,000 awesome ideas of how you thought you would be or what you would do or how your life would be and all that stuff, and you didn't execute on them. So the critical component here is to have that inventive execution. And then, right, because it goes both ways. You're inventive and then you execute on the invention. But then also, as you're executing, you invent new ways to be more effective at executing. Let me say that again. As you're executing and you're in the habit of getting stuff done, you are actively inventing new ways to be more effective at executing. Such as maybe you realize you need to bring on a team member, or you need to talk to this one person about something, or you need to organize your day in a different way. So you're constantly inventing new ways to execute more effectively. And so these three frameworks are incredibly insightful on how we can view the world. The patient urgency is essential. The empathetic imagination is essential, because then you can relate to the world and you can start to look at how am I thinking about things? How are others thinking about things? And how can we merge them and create a solution that would be best for everyone? And then the last piece is that inventive execution.
So remember, everyone, these are not just business concepts. These are life concepts, because being effective in business is understanding reality. So remember, you can apply this to your relationships. Being empathetic, but creative or imaginative in your solution finding, and then being able to execute like a savage. What do I mean by that? I mean, you create a new system that solves whatever communication problem that you've had in your relationship. That's an example that I know both Mitchell and myself use in our relationships. Romantic relationship, business relationship, personal, it does not matter. The point is, a billionaire lives their life holistically. You cannot separate business and personal life. You can't separate family life from work. That's BS. Because that would require you to, section off parts of yourself. It all comes back to you as an individual. So is there a lot of depth to these three concepts? Absolutely. But you're not going to learn it from myself and Mitchell giving you all of the ways that you can apply it. You will learn it from you considering these for yourself, explaining them to yourself, and then applying. The number one key factor of a billionaire is they understand execution. They understand that just being inventive, because a lot of you love the inventive part. A lot of you really love the inventive. Oh, I got great ideas. Oh man, imagine this. Oh, wow. Right? You kind of get off to these beautiful images that you create in your head. Right? The important part is the execution, and a billionaire knows execution. So what I would suggest for anybody listening is make sure that everything you do, you're getting better at the patience, but also being urgent. You're getting better at the understanding people and being empathetic. And you're also being imaginative and using your visualization, inventive. Do not forget the execution. That is where the rubber meets the road. You can do everything else and fail at this, and you'll get zero results. You can kind of slack on everything else, but do this one thing properly, and you'll get results. So focus in on the execution. Mitch?
Yeah. And for those of you who now are starting to realize where you're weak, you can reach out. We put in the description a link to our messenger, and we will make time for people that are serious about this. Because again, the whole point of me and Asif making these is because we see that if we don't all change and become way more effective at directing reality is continuously getting more out of control. and we're here to do something about it. So for those of you who know, hey, I want to do something about this, I need some help. I can tell I'm not executing enough. I can tell I'm not patient enough. I don't know what empathy means, whatever. Just reach out. Whichever of us that you resonate with more, doesn't matter. Just reach out. Let's connect, because you can either join us or you're just going to watch from a side, and then you're going to have regret like you could not imagine. So that's enough for today, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah,
Can
and
we do this
if you're
again,
not
Mitch?
in, what was it?
Should we do this again, Mitch? What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
I think it'd
a
be a
couple
good
other
idea.
things I think that we could chat about that people might like. If you're not in the Young Billionaires Club, join the Discord. We'll also include that in the description. That is so you can connect with more people who are thinking like this. And then, yeah, stay tuned, because Asif and I are about to be creating a lot more content. Because, yeah, what are you feeding yourself every day? Like, if you're not feeding yourself really good, effective information, you're going to be fed information anyway, but it's going to be from Instagram and social media and your neighbor and shit like that. Like, that's not going to actually help build you up. So listen to this, listen to our other videos, and then reach out, because there's a lot more that we can share with you. And as long as you apply this stuff over the next 3 to 6 months, you're going to see drastic changes in your life for the better. And that's our wish for you.
Me and Mitch know that it's better to have a group of 1 million billionaires rather than just 2 or just 5.
Yeah.
So that's why we're creating this, to really find those of you who are ready to and willing to take that responsibility for their own lives and what they can do in this world, to really have a real effect and to live amazing lives equal to the problems that we're going to solve in this world. So if that's you, those are the people that we're looking to connect with.
Awesome. All right, y'all. Well, stay tuned. Check out the other videos and let's connect. All right. Bye.
Take care, everybody.